Rebel religion in the news.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Rebel Religion in the News. I'm Jerry O'Lennon, along with my co-host, Alfredo Romero, the pastor of Rock of Life Fellowship. And our guest today is the Reverend. Do you like Reverend or Pastor Andrew Burchett? What do you like?
Just pastor is fine.
Pastor. Reverend is too...
It
what?
feels pretty formal.
Yeah, it feels too formal.
Like unapproachable.
Unapproachable. Oh, that's
Yes.
a good word.
Yeah.
Andrew Burchett is the lead pastor at Neighborhood Church over in Chico. They're on Notre Dame Boulevard. Their service time is at 10 o'clock. Well, welcome to the show, first of all. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
Neighborhood Church is one of the big boys in town. You guys are, you're one of the mega churches. If we have a mega church, I think it's yours and Pleasant Valley Baptist. Are those the two major churches in Chico?
I would say we have the biggest building, but I would say that we are not the biggest church by a stretch. I would say we're probably the fourth or fifth biggest church in town as far as numbers are concerned. So don't let the big building scare you away.
Give us the lowdown, the 30-second version of the beliefs of what people come into Neighborhood Church. Saved by salvation, saved by good works alone, or salvation alone, or a combination of both, those kinds of things.
Yeah, we're a good Protestant church. We believe in salvation through the work of Jesus alone. And so we trust him and he forgives us. And so though we want to live our life to thank him, and we're created for good works, certainly it is by grace we've been saved.
Yeah.
So
What are the challenges right now facing the church in Chico? I mean, what are the biggest challenges that the church faces, not just nationwide, but particularly in our area where we live?
in our area, well, it's a lot of the same things as
Really,
as the nation, right? You've got politics that are dividing us. You've got folks that would probably rather watch on TV than
Yeah.
come to church. And both Alfredo and I both have live streams, and so we want to support those who can't make it to church. But oftentimes, it's more about comfort than it is about
It's not that they can't
engaging.
come to church; it's that they don't want to come to church.
Right.
But
And
they still want the messaging.
Right. And for those who can't make it to church, and we do have those folks, right, who are elderly, they're sick, they have other things happening with their bodies. I'm so glad that they still
Yeah.
have an opportunity to
I
worship.
agree.
Yeah.
Speaking with Pastor Andrew Burchett of the Neighborhood Church in Chico, saw a statistic: 42% of pastors have seriously considered quitting the ministry. Does that sound about right to you?
It's low. That's a low stat.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very high. And we lost about a third of pastors through and after COVID. Guys just hung it up. They just walked away from ministry. It was so difficult for so many pastors. They just said, what's the point?
Yeah, I can name a few. I mean, I can think of
Yeah.
pastors here in Chico
Yeah.
and the surrounding areas that go, we just won't recover after this.
But when to an outsider, and I'm an outsider, I look, and again, I'm not, I'm an outsider. I look at it and I think, gosh, what a wonderful life that you must live. You have so much freedom. You're laughing at me, but you have so much freedom to do what you want, to decide where you want to go.
We sleep in.
Yeah,
Oh,
you work
no.
one day a week.
One day a week.
Hang out.
Nobody believes that canard. Okay, nobody believes that a pastor works one day a week. They know better. They're preparing sermons. They have to go do visitations. That you have a business to run.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a business.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
And some of it is having to put your hand out and ask. I mean, you need to be a businessman in some ways, do you not?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would hate that part of it.
That is that's essential if you're going to keep the doors open.
Yeah.
And first of all, if you're a pastor, I hope that you're called to it, and there's a sense of calling in ministry that if you're not called to it, you won't last because it's too difficult. It is a grind. Being a pastor is a grind, and the day that most people take off every week is the day that is your biggest day work week.
Mhm.
Sunday is probably we're the busiest on Sunday, right?
Yeah, I mean, we went to school, and a whole part of the education and the whole curriculum was infrastructure of a church. I mean, they taught us how to how to run a business and employment. And I'm telling you also, the state, federal, and the Department of Justice make sure it's a business for us.
Oh yeah.
They're all over us. Not then they think we don't pay taxes. We pay employer taxes, workman's comp. We pay payroll taxes. We have to submit we have to submit our inventory of our property, and then the Department of Justice makes us have to do so many written. It's amazing the amount of
Is
work
it
that we
worse
do.
in California than it is in other states? I'm sure you have friends and colleagues, pastors in other states that might not have the same challenges that we have in California, or is it the same across the board?
Hmm, I'm not sure. I think it's probably a little more difficult here in California. It
Yeah.
seems like everything's more difficult in California.
Yeah.
Yeah, then they even try to pass laws about how we can secure our buildings, and they try, and also the whole COVID thing, basically forcing us to shut down during that time. I'd say it was more difficult in California. I mean, we used to have church in Hawaii and other places I've been, but California's a bit more difficult.
So we're speaking with Pastor Andrew Burchett of the Neighborhood Church in Chico, and we're talking about the challenges that a pastor has. What's the biggest misconception that exists out there when it pertains to a pastor, besides the obvious, which is that most people think we only work 1 day a week. I think again I think most people realize that's not the case now. I think people are beyond that. But other kind of misconceptions that people have about what you do.
That we make lots of money.
Oh golly. Yeah, somebody somewhere is making a lot of money doing ministry, but I don't know who they
I
are.
don't know who that is.
That's a good question. If you're making a lot of money, maybe you're not a good minister. Is there any truth to that?
No,
No. So a ministry, it's okay for a minister to make a lot of money?
I suppose.
Really?
Yeah.
How should a minister, because Jesus made no money,
Yeah, right.
but he had no family to take care of.
But he had a treasurer, and they did receive offerings.
Yeah.
They had somebody in the disciples. That
Yeah, the
took
treasurer
care of the money.
didn't turn out to be such a good guy after all, though,
No,
did he?
no.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes as Christians we think that money is evil, and yet the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil, right? And so um I don't think I know any pastor who's making a lot of money, so it's kind of a hypothetical situation.
Right.
But I don't think I think the concept that the workman is worthy of his hire is one of those things that if you're working hard, you should get paid a decent wage. And I think everybody would feel that way, whether you're a pastor, if you work at Starbucks or whatever.
But there's a reason that you two are still in it, and other people who come onto our show are still in it. They stay in it for a reason. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a scale, right?
That's right.
And the scale is there's the negative here on this side, but
Yeah.
then there's the positive on this side. And from so far in your lives, the positives are outweighing the negatives, and you're still doing the job. So the negatives are it's hard work.
Yeah.
It's got to be emotionally taxing.
Very.
Yeah.
I would, there's a saying, do you really want to hear other people's problems? I mean, I don't like hearing other. I mean, there's a saying I always that I live by: never tell people your problems, because 90% of the people don't care that you have problems. The other 10% are glad you've got them, and so you don't tell anybody your problems. But that's the difference is pastors should want to hear your problems, or do you want to hear people's problems?
100% I do. That's
Really?
one of the big parts of our calling is to uh, hear what people are struggling with, so we can bring truth to that. At the very least, we could empathize, and prayer is still the greatest gift that we have to be able to help others. I mean, people think that prayer is some compulsory thing you do just on before meals and at church. It is the lifeblood of living in 2025. And so praying with others oftentimes is the only thing you can provide hope with, because I don't have a lot of solutions for cancer or other things.
How many people have you gotten through death with?
This week,
Really?
one
One
this week. I mean, I have a saying, there's somebody dying every week.
Oh,
There's someone dying every week. And
Does that? How do you not make that routine?
you can't.
You have to
You
personalize
can't.
every single one. don't you?
Everyone's
100%.
everyone's an individual.
Yes.
Everybody's
Yep.
different. The situations are different. The
Yep.
family reactions are different.
Is that part of the reason that people would want to get out of the ministry to be around so much death? Or there's some pastors who say that, when my mother passed on, I had a pastor tell me, he said, it's not going to be what you think, Jerry. It's going to be a beautiful moment in your life when you watch your mother pass. And it was the most beautiful moment of my life.
Sacred, right? Yeah.
It was amazing. And so I wonder, can you take that type of emotion and carry it each week, every single time, and experience it in a new way with a new family? or is how do you not
All
stay on
only
autopilot?
only by God's grace can you do that, and that's where, um, as a pastor, if you're not relying on the strength and the grace of the Lord, which is sufficient for us, right?
Mhm.
His power is made perfect in our weakness. It can be you can let it be something that's a very rote thing, but I think when you're in those moments, I feel like I'm invading a holy space. I feel like
Yeah.
I am honored to get to be in this space and to give a gift. And I think too, I did youth ministry for years, and I would say that, you take a kid to camp and it's worth, 3 years worth of lunches or
Mhm.
having a Coke after school, as far as the connection you make. In the same way, when you walk through something like this with people, the connection you make with them is worth, 10 years worth of Sundays. You get
Mhm.
closer to someone walking through the end of life kind of circumstances. And it's beautiful. And if you're a pastor and you're relational, and not all pastors are wired as relational beings, some just want to preach and some just want to get up and, do
Yeah.
their thing. I'm not that guy. I want to love.
Yeah.
I think getting a family and getting a person through the experience of death would be the reason I would stay in it.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's the reason, because that would be
Yeah.
the challenge, because you know you're making and
Oh,
that must
yeah.
be, you must know.
You
The
know.
reason you stay in is because you know you make a difference in people's lives. Not
Yes.
just a difference. Oh, I made a difference in someone's life
Right.
today. I
Right.
said hello and I gave
Yep.
somebody a $5 bill on who was homeless. That's not really making a difference in someone's life.
Right.
That's making a difference in somebody's meal. They have enough to buy a burger, but well, not $5. You need at least 20 now.
Yeah.
But you really do. I just got a combination meal somewhere for like $20. It was ridiculous. Anyway, that's a whole different topic. But I just follow for like 15, 20 seconds. Getting somebody through the end of life experience would be the most meaningful thing you could do in your life.
It's difficult emotionally, but it's extremely rewarding spiritually, especially when they have family members, like at a celebration of life, where you actually get to preach and tell them about the opportunity for an eternity with Jesus.
That music means we have a break coming up. You're listening to Rebel Religion in the News. We're with Pastor Andrew Burchett of the Neighborhood Church in Chico. We'll continue our chat talking about what it's like to be a minister and talking about the Sabbath, the importance of it. Do we place enough importance on the Sabbath when we come back?
Religion in the news.
Hey, welcome back to Rebel Religion in the News. Today, our guest is Pastor Andrew Burchett from Neighborhood Church. And we've been talking about just the kind of the hardships on pastors and ministry. And I wanted to kick it back over to you to talk about how do we overcome the weariness and the emotional, spiritual, mental, and even physical draining that pastors get just from ministry. So I just want to throw that over to you for a minute.
Yeah, I think when we look at Jesus' example, he withdraws to lonely places. He gets up early in the morning when it's still dark, kind of like the way it is right now, and he knew that he needed to draw close to the Father before he engaged with people. And when we're at our best, whether we're a pastor or not, we are following his example. And the idea of drawing away, we talk about quiet times every day, and the idea of reading your Bible and prayer and things like that. Certainly, what Jesus modeled for us. But there is, I think, another gift that I've found as a pastor, and I think all people should consider. And it's actually from the Old Testament. The idea in the Ten Commandments, you have, of course, 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
The one that takes up about 30% of the space as far as words is remember the Sabbath and remember to keep it holy. And and then there's a longer phrase about how important it is to remember God's faithfulness and goodness and rest like he did. And oftentimes we think that's like the outlier. Well, I can do all the other commandments, but
Yeah,
I don't have to do
yeah.
that because I'm not Jewish somehow or
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
this, keeping the Sabbath, it doesn't feel like it's not one of the big boys on
No,
the top 10.
no, you're not murder or stealing
Yeah,
something, coveting your,
adultery.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. No, not
I've
like
even
that.
heard people in ministry go, "Oh, I'll rest when I'm dead." Well,
yeah.
not resting will kind of usher that in a little
I was
quick.
gonna say, do
Yeah.
you want to end your ministry quicker?
Yeah.
Great, this
Yeah,
is
don't
the way.
rest.
Um, there were some megachurch pastors that were asked, "What's your most important part of your job?" And I think it was Rick Warren who said, "To remain encouraged." And how in the world do you remain encouraged if you don't pace yourself? I used to run half marathons, and you just didn't start sprinting. You didn't. 13 and a half miles is 13.1 miles is not short, right? So you pacing yourself. So what does pacing yourself look like in life? How do you actually walk in a healthy place? And part of it has to do with our work-life balance. I think, have on one end, you have some folks that don't want to work at all. And maybe you've got a kid that you're trying to get out of your basement and, encourage them. We'll pray for
Yeah,
you that
yeah.
you can figure that out. And that's kind of more on the lazy end of things. But most of us are overworked. Most of us don't stop to rest and to reflect and actually spend time with God.
Some people feel guilty when they're resting.
They do. They
I'm
do.
one of those.
They do.
I play a video baseball game, and I'll sit down for sometimes like I gotta just get away from it. I'll play for like an hour, and I feel so guilty. I was like, I could have done something in that hour instead of playing my Sony video baseball game, and which is so stupid, and it's a completely mindless entertainment. But you know what? I'm done for an hour doing. I'm like, okay, but I still feel guilty. I said I could have done something else. I could have gone and mowed the lawn. I could have done some work, but no, I had to play my video baseball game. But you know what? I mean, I think that what you're saying is you do need to carve out that time for yourself, because otherwise you're just gonna I don't know, self implode. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to burn out. There was a guy named A.J. Swoboda. He has a book named Subversive Sabbath. He says the Sabbath has largely been forgotten by the church, which has uncritically mimicked the rhythms of the industrial and success-obsessed West. And what's the result? Our road-weary, exhausted churches have largely failed to integrate Sabbath into their lives as vital elements of Christian discipleship. It is not as though we do not love God. We love God deeply. We just don't know how to sit with God anymore. We have become perhaps the most emotionally exhausted, psychologically overworked, spiritually malnourished people in history.
Do you think I know a church? I don't want to name the church where the Sabbath and going to church is a full day event. And sometimes I wonder if that's always a good idea. Okay, we're going to get together, we're going to have coffee, we're going to have donuts, we're going to have some treats, and then we're going to go to church. And after church, we're going to have a get together, and then we're going to go take a break, go home. We're going to come back for a 6 o'clock or a 7 o'clock service later that Sunday.
Wow.
And then it's
Not really a Sabbath.
That's not a Sabbath. And
No,
sometimes
especially if you're an introvert, you
Right.
die. I mean,
Yeah.
you just wouldn't go to that church if you're an introvert.
No.
So, but I mean, I just wonder: is it possible to have too much church? Boy, that's
That's a big question, right?
I'm not sure if I can answer that question, but I can say that I think God's design, because he creates the world and everything, the universe in 6 days, and he rested. He shows us the pattern, right?
Yeah.
Then we have the 10 Commandments, and then we have Jesus who comes along and he works on the Sabbath, quote unquote, but he's doing good things. He says, hey, if your son or your animal falls into a well in Luke 14, you're going to save them.
Yeah.
If you're, he's picking wheat with his disciples and he gets, criticized by the Pharisees. And so it's not as if we do absolutely nothing on the Sabbath or nothing positive or good, whether it's church or not, whatnot. For some folks, a Sunday is not a good Sabbath day. Sunday's a good day. It's the Lord's day, right? That was how we see in Acts and 1 Corinthians, that's that shift between Saturday and Sunday, that Christians were celebrating the resurrection on Saturday. That's where we differ from our friends at the Seventh-day Adventist Church, right? They're like all about Saturday being the Sabbath. Well, technically, Saturday is the Sabbath day in the Jewish calendar. But the idea is that you take 24-hour period and you rest, and it's supposed to be the best day of your week. It's not supposed to be the worst day of your week or that you go to church all day long. It's ceasing from your work. It's delighting. The word actually has to do with taking delight in rest.
Yeah.
And so it's supposed to be this gift that we have. And Jesus talks about the Sabbath. He says, we're not made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for us. And Jesus says, I am the Lord of the Sabbath. I get to redefine what this looks like. And then even in Hebrews, we see that there still remains a Sabbath rest. And now I would think that is more about resting and not trying to go for works and trying to cease striving and know that I'm God. But I still think taking what I've found in my own life, when I take 24 hours and I play and I eat and I spend time with my family and I
Yeah.
worship and I read
Yes.
my Bible and I play my guitar and I take walks, I am the rest of my week slows down
Hmm.
because I've carved out that time that I didn't feel guilty because I realized the Lord has told he told us to do this. And so but most of us Christians, we're going a million miles an hour. So for me, a Sabbath is actually on Friday. I don't
Yeah.
Sabbath on Sunday because I work, churches work. But for
Hmm.
some people that just come to our worship services, that's part of their like Sabbath rest and they love it. And for others, maybe that are volunteering a lot, it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a Sabbath. And so they actually Sabbath on a different day.
Yeah, that's a good point. Most of my workers or the servants in the church, their Sabbath day is Saturday. And
Hmm.
whatever day, the 24-hour period,
Yep.
their Sabbath is Saturday. They take it easy, they rest because they know that they have service on Sunday. But I want to answer your question really quick about, is can you get too much church? The way I view it and the way it's worked for us is we have enough events during the week: men's Bible studies, women's Bible studies, youth groups. We have other Bible studies. We have coffee time, and we have all these things, and of course, church. And there's a wedding in our church on Saturday. Um, Whenever the doors are open, whenever people can make it, there's never a pressure. You've got to be here. You got to be. I mean, real quick, I walk into a store. I meet somebody in a store that goes in my church, and if they hadn't been there in a Sunday there for a while, first thing they say to me is, "Oh, Pastor, I've been sick lately.
I do that all the
I
time.
haven't been in
Oh,
church.
golly.
I haven't
That's
done that."
me.
And then I take my phone out and I go, "Well, according to my attendance app, you're right. Technically, it's been 4 Sundays, and before that, you missed 2 out of 5." I just tease them, right? And they go, "What? You have an app?" And I go, "No, I'm just kidding." I go, "Look, I don't care. The doors are open. You make it when you can. It's between you and the Lord." So
Yeah.
hopefully, I don't know if you understand that, but yeah. Anyway, but the biggest thing is, how do we draw our strength from this? When we're weary,
Yeah.
where do we get that strength from? Because you mentioned, look, you pray, you read your Bible. That's the strength for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have made things like Sabbath more about religion than relationship. And
Mm.
really, what Sabbath is an invitation to say, the Lord's saying, come spend time with me. Come delight in the things that I created for you. And I mean, those things could be Sony baseball, really.
Mhm.
Like it really, that doesn't. We don't have to say we're going to have to read a bunch of books about Greek and Hebrew, and So I mean, I think the words of just to kind of finish up Matthew 11: "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. You will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light."
Mm.
And I think it's all about if you're walking with Jesus in the yoke, a yoke, of course, is two animals walking together. You have a more seasoned animal and a not so seasoned animal, and we would be the not so seasoned one, and we walk at his pace. And part of his pace includes one day a week where we rest.
Yes.
Mhm.
I
And
agree. Amen.
that changes our pace the rest of the week,
Yeah.
and it actually slows us down.
Matter of fact, I want to go home right now and take a nap because
Yeah, in fact, Pastor Andrew Burchett of Neighborhood Church, I meant to ask you, you've been in the ministry how long? Before, because we only have about a minute left. I never got to some of the details about your bio.
34 years of ministry. Yep, I've been the on staff at Neighborhood for 26 years, which is actually my home church, and I've been the lead pastor for 13.
amazing. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
good man. Like I said, um, it's all about people with him, and I appreciate him. He's a good example for all the pastors.
Hmm.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah, no problems.
Is it too soon to begin preparing your sermon for next week, or do you get an early start on it?
Oh yeah, I'm always thinking about what's next. So I usually don't actually sit down and start writing things down until Monday.
Yeah.
Well,
So
that's today. Get started.
today would be the day.
We'll let you get going. We want to thank Pastor Andrew Burchett. If you're watching our podcast, you can see service times at Neighborhood Church is 10 o'clock Sunday mornings, 2801 Notre Dame Boulevard. Thank you so much, Pastor. I sure enjoyed having you on the show. Hope you'll come back.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, on Rebel Religion in the News. We'll talk to you next time. Take good care, and so long, everybody.
Rebel